This is Dan York, and I'm here with Eric Berger, who is the chairman of the SIP Forum. So welcome, Eric.
Hi, Dan.
So tell us a bit about what the SIP Forum is. What does it do?
So the SIP Forum is a membership organization with 5,000 participant members, over 40 full members, and we've just opened a new category called Academic and Research Institution Membership, which we'll be announcing the charter members shortly. And what we do is take SIP and make it so that it gets adopted and many people use it in the marketplace. So we will do things like create awareness, marketing, explain the importance of SIP. If you go back to the founding of the SIP Forum in 2000, there were questions of, well, do we want to take protocols from the public network, the switched network, and just make them over IP, or do we want to take a more internet approach to these protocols? And we obviously voted with the internet approach, which is why we created and backed the SIP Forum. Recently, SIP, though, has become you could say rather complicated and complex, and so some of the things we do are take the specifications of the IETF and ITU and W3C, and in a lot of places where they have many different options because they've created these protocols for many different uses and scenarios, and we create best practices for certain situations. Probably our best known work in this area is SIP Connect, which is a profile for connecting enterprise PBXs, that's IP obviously connected PBXs, to SIP enabled service providers, where equipment manufacturers on the enterprise side will indicate SIP Connect compliance, and service providers as well, which is something kind of unusual for communications products. They will also certify that they are SIP Connect compliant so that the enterprise customers have a higher chance that their equipment is going to interoperate and work together.
So the theory is that a SIP Connect compliant IP PBX should, in theory, be able to easily connect to a SIP compliant service provider.
That's correct. The way it's been done to date is the service providers will test many different PBXs, or basically leave it up to a systems integrator or the enterprise to just buy this stuff and hope it works.
Now you're here in Minneapolis at the IETF meeting, but yet you're SIP Forum. How's the relationship between the two organizations?
That's a really good question, because if you look at the composition of the SIP Forum, it's many of the same companies and many of the same people, in fact, that are working in both venues. So we very much support each other. One thing that's an absolute is the SIP Forum does not create protocols. We will take these protocols and frameworks and put them together in ways that are useful for society at large, our members, to promote the use of SIP. But again, we don't do the protocols themselves. So we have a vested interest in the work being done, and this is one of the most important venues for SIP work.
So really, in one way, the SIP Forum becomes a marketing arm promoting the adoption of SIP, really.
Very much so. In fact, again, going back to our roots back in 2000, that was almost purely what it was. There was no thought of profiles or compliance certification suites or anything of that nature. It was purely promoting the use of SIP, and of course, probably one of the most important functions that we've had in the SIP market is running the SIPIT, or the SIP interoperability testing events, which again was just to make sure first that people learned how to make SIP stacks, but then how it operates and really works in the real world, as well as finding, let's face it, sometimes there are bugs not only in implementations, but bugs in the specs, and we find that too. Again, when we find anything like that, we bring it directly back to the IETF.
That's cool. Now, so what's next with the SIP Forum? What are you working on today?
Well, we have some initiatives. One is a giant leap back to the future, as we could say, in that we're working on fax interoperability. Very interesting problem from an adoption of SIP, but also a use of SIP situation where for many enterprises, in fact, I had the situation myself with, I have a SIP-based voice over IP provider for my service at home, and I bought a fax machine, and I had to do some faxing, and it didn't work. And that was almost like, okay, I better call the phone company and get my old analog line back. Now, of course, I worked with a particular company. They were a customer too. And we got it to work. But the point being that faxing is still an important part of the communications experience for businesses more than individuals, but even for some individuals. And so we have to have that working to have more adoption of SIP. And it also turns out that some of the reliability problems of sending fax over IP, it seems that they could be addressed by better signaling at the SIP level, which is where we obviously have expertise and can help.
Cool. So fax is one. Any other initiatives?
We're also working on user agent configuration. A thing that people have been talking for a few years now is why is it that SIP, which was published back in 1998, had this promise of people doing communications over the internet, and yet it wasn't until Skype came out that people were doing it a lot. And one of the places that many people pointed to was when you got Skype, you took it out of the box, you turned it on, it found the Skype servers, and you were just running.
Right.
Whereas with a SIP user agent client, which is our fancy way of saying a phone, in fact, that's indicative of the problem.
Right.
You would talk to a SIP person, they talk about user agent clients and user agent servers and back-to-back user agents, and Joe Average is going, but I want a phone.
Dude, I want a phone.
That's right. I want a phone and I want to make a call. What's this user agent thing? And of course, the most famous quote from Henning Schulzrenne when they get to first type in all of this information, which they're not used to doing. And one of the things is a stun server, which is something that's very important for going through firewalls. But to, again, Joe Average, he's thinking, oh, is this the thing that zaps me if I don't pay my phone bill? Well, I better not fill that one in. And so we're working on user agent configuration, where we can automatically configure a phone. And we have a number of scenarios, the sort of the soft phone like Skype, a smart hard phone, as well as a access device, an integrated access device or a gateway that you plug your old-fashioned analog phone into, where it has no user interface and how it can be self-programmed so that you basically get back to plug and play.
Cool. So if people want to learn more or participate in those sessions, first of all, I guess the question is, can individuals participate and how do they do it and where do they go?
Absolutely. So again, this is part of why we have 5,000 participant members. You just go to the sipforum.org website and you can sign up. On the left-hand side, it talks about membership. You can sign up as a participant member. All you need is a working email address, and at that point you can join our technical work group and our various different task groups working on these and other interesting problems.
Cool. Well, thanks. Well, I've been talking here with Eric Berger, who is the chairman of the SIP Forum. So thanks for your time, Eric.
Thank you very much, Dan.